Welcome to this Phrasal Verbs Masterclass. Today you'll learn 150 phrasal verbs that will help you sound fluent, sound natural, and sound professional in English. Of course, I'm Jennifer from JForrest English. Now let's get started. Remember that phrasal verbs have multiple meanings depending on context. So I'll show you the phrasal verb and then I'll give you an example sentence so you can see how that phrasal verb is being used. Our first phrasal verb, pull off. I know the team can pull it off. Pull off. Do you know this one? In this context, to pull off means to succeed in doing something difficult or unexpected. For example, getting a high mark on your IELTS is challenging, but I know you'll pull it off. So notice here, I know you'll pull it off. Here it means I know you'll succeed at getting a high mark on your IELTS. How about this one? If you have a great teacher, I know I'll pull it off. Maybe that's something you would say. I know I'll pull it off. I will be successful if I have a great teacher. And I hope I'm that great teacher for you. If you agree with that, put that's right, I'll pull it off with Jennifer's help. Put that's right in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's listen to some real world examples using this phrasal verb.
Is it something you really managed to pull off, or does the Middle East really still have us kind of sucked in?
So, how did Ukraine pull off such a stunning attack?
It requires a bit of confidence to pull off.
Our next phrasal verb, take off. Sarah's online store really took off. Do you know what this means? Take off. This means to become successful or popular. For example, my YouTube channel didn't take off at first. It wasn't successful or popular at first, but I was persistent and consistent, and eventually it took off. Eventually it became successful. I could also say, and eventually I pulled it off. I pulled it off. And in this case, it represents creating and growing a successful YouTube channel. Or I could say to you, if you're consistent, your English fluency and confidence will take off. Do you agree with that? Well, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now let's listen to some real world examples using this phrasal verb.
Just at the point where your career is starting to take off, you're taking on seniority.
After the trial, she was able to move away to Florence, and that's where we really see her career kind of take off.
But once you look at that 10-year mark and beyond, that's where things really start to take off.
Next, put off. She put off scheduling her IELTS. Do you know what put off means? This means to delay or postpone doing something. She put off scheduling her IELTS until she mastered phrasal verbs. Now this means she'll schedule her IELTS once she masters phrasal verbs. You might say, let's put off the meeting, let's delay the meeting until after the long weekend. Or your husband or roommate might ask you, are we still cleaning out the garage this weekend? And you can say, let's put it off until winter. Let's delay it until winter. Let's listen to some real world examples.
Do you put off writing a paper until the last minute?
Just an idea being put off for a better time that never came.
20s, and I think it's such a waste when people just put off their vacation or travel plans.
Next, turn around. How did you turn around your online store? Do you know what this means? To turn around, this means to take a business plan or system from not successful to successful. For example, the new manager turned the marketing department around. So to turn something around, to take the marketing department from not successful to successful. Or she turned around her speaking skills by practicing speaking every day. And you can add to this and say her excellent communication skills helped her career take off, become successful. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
I'm hoping we can turn it around.
Of accommodation that has turned the business, turned it around.
Our economy in peril. We turned it around.
Our next phrasal verb, call off. Do you know why the meeting was called off? Do you know what this means? To call off, this means to cancel something that was planned or scheduled. For example, the company had to call off the conference, cancel the conference because of the hurricane. Now let's compare this sentence to one with put off. Remember, put off means delay. The company had to put off the conference because of the hurricane. Do you know the difference between these two sentences? In the first example with call off, the conference will not happen. It is canceled. But in the second example with put off, the conference will happen, but at a later date. Or you could say she called off her birthday party when she got sick. She canceled it. She didn't put it off, she called it off. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
As violence, they began to receive threats to call off their events.
After 2 hours, the Mamluks call off their attack and retreat.
So we decided to call off the wedding at the last minute.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. How are you doing with these phrasal verbs so far? Our next phrasal verb, to catch up on. I spent the whole day catching up on emails. Do you know what this means? To catch up on, this means to do something that you haven't been able to do recently. For example, I need to catch up on your lessons. Maybe you say that to me or to your teacher or your piano instructor. This means you haven't been able to review the lessons recently, so now you have many lessons to review and you need to catch up on them. You need to watch all the lessons you haven't reviewed. Or you could say, this weekend, I caught up on my chores. I did all the chores I haven't been able to do because I was too busy doing other things, so I put them off. But this weekend, I caught up on them. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Anyone that wants to catch up on that part of the story can go back and watch our original interview, which they should do anyway.
Because it feels like a way to catch up on social media or read something.
Let's have this down period. Catch up an email, go home at a regular time.
Our next phrasal verb, blurt out. I can't believe I blurted that out in front of my boss. Do you know what this means? To blurt out. This is when you say something suddenly without thinking, often something that shouldn't have been said. For example, let's say you're in a meeting and you're discussing a strategy or a goal, and you say, there's no way we'll pull that off. There's no way we'll be successful. And then later in the meeting, you can say, oh, why did I blurt that out? I have such a big mouth. So this is an expression, to have a big mouth. Someone who has a big mouth often says things they shouldn't say because they don't think before they speak. So people with big mouths often blurt things out. Or maybe your coworker is looking for a new job, but it was a secret. but then you say to your coworker, I accidentally blurted out that you're looking for a new job. So you said it suddenly without thinking. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Further, when girls blurt out answers without raising their hands.
One of you, so what's your story? Can you just blurt out a 30-second story?
His first reflex was not to blurt out what was going on.
Next, comb through. Do you have time to comb through this report? Do you know what this means? To comb through. And notice that B is silent. Comb. Comb through. This means to analyze or review something carefully and completely. Before you submit your CV, you should comb through it to make sure there are no errors. That's always good advice. Or, I combed through this entire textbook to prepare for my IELTS. You reviewed it entirely and completely. She spent the whole afternoon combing through old family photos to create a scrapbook. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Help NASA kind of comb through our data.
So I went back to my staff, let's comb through this.
Go comb through their website.
Next, skim through. I only had enough time to skim through the report. Do you know what this means? To skim through. This means to review something quickly without going into detail. So you can think of it as the opposite of comb through. For example, the consultant has an impressive background, but I only skimmed through his proposal. I didn't read it fully. She skimmed through the recipe to make sure she had all the ingredients. So she looked at it quickly, not fully. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Can't sort of skim through it.
And I'm just going to skim through, hit a couple of the highlights.
Read the class syllabus, skim through textbooks, and review all the materials.
Next, gloss over. The consultant glossed over the budget increase. Do you know what this means? To gloss over, this means to briefly mention something without going into detail. And you do this often to avoid discussing it thoroughly. For example, the manager glossed over the consultant's rude comment. So how could he gloss over this rude comment? Maybe he's in the middle of a meeting and he says to the consultant, who remember said something rude, he says to him, I appreciate your perspective. Anyway, let's review the upcoming conference. So he mentioned it briefly, but then he quickly moved on to something else because he didn't want to spend time reviewing that negative comment. How about this one? My brother always glosses over why his girlfriend doesn't come to family gatherings. He mentions it quickly, but then moves on to a different topic on purpose because he doesn't want to discuss it. He glosses over it. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Love this stuff, so I didn't want to gloss over anything.
In the early days, I would gloss over my family's experience.
I'll have to gloss over or omit many formal details.
Next, pan out. The speaker we wanted didn't pan out. Do you know what this means? To pan out, this means to have a successful outcome. The strategy didn't pan out. This means the strategy wasn't successful, didn't have a successful outcome. So we need to revise our approach. Or you could say to your spouse or roommate or family member, let's see how our kitchen reno pans out before we start the bathroom. Reno is short for renovation, so you're renovating your kitchen. Let's see how it pans out. Let's see how successful it is before we start another renovation. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Another reason why this learning styles theory doesn't pan out.
And in that way, in case there were any failures, in case things didn't pan out.
We're excited to see how the metrics of those pan out.
Our next phrasal verb, drift off. I think I drifted off during the presentation. Do you know what this means? To drift off. This means to gradually become less focused or to fall asleep unintentionally, not on purpose, often while engaged in another activity. Here's a real example. Sometimes I drift off when my husband starts talking about his work. Now in this case, I don't fall asleep, but I gradually stop paying attention to my husband and I start just paying attention to other things. We have another expression, my mind wanders. I drift off because my husband's work is very technical and often I don't really understand what he's saying. So I drift off. You could also say, I must have drifted off during the movie. Now this could mean that you stopped paying attention to the movie and you started paying attention to other things, or quite likely you fell asleep during the movie and you didn't even realize that it ended. And hours later, you're asleep on your couch and the movie is over and you had no idea. You drifted off. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Listening to the sound of the ocean as you slowly drift off to sleep.
It might feel nice for a while to drift off into past memories.
Eventually, Henry began to drift off for the last time.
Next, dip into. We had to dip into our emergency fund to make payroll. Do you understand this one? To dip into, this means to spend a portion of a reserve or saving, often temporarily. So you have this reserve or saving, and if you dip into it, you take a portion, some of that money out. So this is used specifically with spending money. For example, the company had to dip into its emergency fund, so take a portion of that fund to cover the unexpected expenses. Or we had to dip into our savings to cover the cost of the car repair. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
The House had initially proposed a $2,700 payout, but couldn't muster the votes required to dip into savings to pay for it.
But there are other proposals to dip into it, one for a school loan construction fund.
And therefore, I don't need to dip into my savings.
Our next phrasal verb, pick up. I pick up a lot of English expressions by watching TV. Do you know what this means? In this context, pick up means to learn something informally or casually, often through exposure rather than instruction. So right now, you're not picking up these phrasal verbs. I'm teaching them to you. This is formal instruction. But if you're watching a TV show and you hear the speaker say a phrasal verb in speech and you learn the meaning of that phrasal verb from that TV show, you just picked up that phrasal verb, which is a great way to learn. Or maybe you have a great skill, you know how to code, and someone asks you, did you take coding classes? And you say, no, I just picked it up over the years. So you were exposed to coding and you just learned it gradually from being exposed to it. You didn't take formal classes or have formal instruction. Let's listen to some real-world examples.
Turning to LinkedIn Learning more than ever to pick up new skills.
Find people with similar hobbies and pick up new interests.
It's not uncommon for humans to pick up new accents.
How about this phrasal verb, shake off? If you make a mistake, just shake it off. Do you know this one? If you're a Taylor Swift fan, you probably do. Shake off. This means to get rid of something such as a problem or mistake and move on from it. So you can imagine the problem is right here and you just shake it off, shake it off. This is commonly used in sports. The coach might say to the team, we're down 3 points, which means we're losing by 3 points. We're down 3 points. We need to shake it off and play better than ever. So this means not let the fact that we're losing affect us. We need to forget about it and play better than ever. Or you could say, I know I made a few grammar mistakes during my spoken exam, but I just shook them off and I passed, which is a great reminder that you can make mistakes and still pull it off, still be successful.
And
They shake off criticism with a flip of the wig.
So my challenge is that we share and we shake off those narratives.
It had developed a reputation as the king of knockoffs, and it couldn't shake the reputation of being a copycat.
Do you know the difference between these two sentences? She called me out in the meeting. She called out to me in the meeting. Both of these sentences use a similar looking but different phrasal verb. To call someone out, to call out to someone. Yes, they look very similar, almost identical, but they have completely different meanings. First, let's talk about to call someone out. This means to confront or criticize someone, often publicly, for their actions or behaviors. She called him out for not keeping his promises. This means that in public, she said, you didn't keep your promise, and that was a bad thing. She called him out. Now, my students, maybe even you, always call me out when I make a typo. They publicly say, Jennifer, you spelled that wrong. Jennifer, this isn't correct. But that's okay. I don't mind.
Bert's calling me out, though, apparently.
Called him out loudly.
It's interesting to hear them call us out on that.
Now let's compare this to call out to someone. This means to shout or raise your voice to get someone's attention. Hey, hey John, hey Mary. He called out to his friend across the street. He did this to get her or his attention. So now let's compare these. He called out his friend. This is grammatically correct. It means to publicly criticize. He called out to his friend. This is grammatically correct. It means he shouted to get his friend's attention. Hey, John. Now let's talk about jump in. When you jump in, it means you enter a conversation or a situation. So I could say to you, if we were in a class or a meeting, a live lesson, feel free to jump in with any ideas. I'm inviting you to stop me in the middle of my presentation to share your ideas. Or maybe managers are talking and say, it's nice to see Sarah jumping in at meetings. They're saying it's nice to see Sarah participating, sharing her ideas more actively, maybe because she feels confident speaking in English.
I'm gonna jump in, so I want to make sure I get this one in and lighten it up just a minute.
Please feel free to jump in at any point.
Now, just like my examples show, this is generally used in a positive way. And that's important because let's compare that to butt in. Butt in. This means to interrupt or intrude into a conversation in a negative way. He kept butting in while I was presenting. He kept stopping me to say something, and I found this very rude.
Just butting in here for some side facts.
Or you could say, you should just butt out. Butt out. It's none of your business. So notice here, I changed butt in to butt out. This means you should stop intruding in something that doesn't concern you.
Butt out, Klaus.
So let's review. Jump or butt into a conversation, discussion, meeting, or situation. Notice you need into as one word if you specify the noun, a conversation. And butt out of a conversation, discussion, meeting, or situation. So remember the meaning and that structure. Next, let's talk about to come up with. This means to think of or create something, such as an idea, plan, or solution. They came up with a new marketing strategy. They thought of, they created.
Because Louis Pasteur came up with his technique for sterilizing milk in 1865.
I spend time every day coming up with new lessons for you. I think about ideas, I write them down, I brainstorm for you.
What'd you come up with?
So now let's change the preposition and talk about to come out with. This means to introduce or release something new, usually a product or service. The way we communicate changed when Apple came out with the iPhone.
If we were sitting down having this interview the day that Apple came out with the iPhone, you'd be asking me, really? They're going to compete with Motorola?
Electric typewriters then came out with self-contained correction ribbons so that you could make corrections right there on the machine as you typed.
Let's compare these together. Engineers at Apple came up with the idea of a smartphone in 2005. I don't know if that date is accurate. This means they thought of the idea. What if we had a phone? Now, Apple came out with the iPhone in 2007. That date is correct. This means they released the idea to the public as a product, the product being the iPhone. You could buy the iPhone. Let's review to back out of something. This means to decide not to do something you had previously agreed to. She backed out of the deal at the last minute.
Why are you backing out?
Or you said you were going to finish the English course. Don't back out now.
Don't even think about backing out, man.
Let's compare this to back something up. This means to make a copy of data to prevent loss, something you should do. For years, my husband told me I should back up my computer, but I didn't listen.
Didn't you back it up in your computer?
But now that I use Google Docs, my files are automatically backed up. A copy of my files are saved in a secure location. So always back up your computer and don't back out of things you said you were going to do. To catch on to something. This is when you begin to understand or realize something. It took him a while, but he finally caught on to the joke. Now, you don't have to include the something if context is obvious. You could say, it took him a while, but he finally caught on, if you're talking about a joke and the context is obvious.
But she caught on pretty fast.
But either way, people caught on to coffee's advantages and began making tea from its leaves.
So let's talk about catch up to someone. This means to reach the same level or pace as someone else. She's driving too fast. We'll never catch up. You can say we'll never catch up or catch up to her. If you specify the someone, you need the preposition to.
Hurry! They're catching up!
Now let's look at this sentence. I need to catch up on my work so I can catch up to my coworker. When you catch up on something, it means you do the tasks that you missed or were not previously completed.
With students able to catch up on work over a coffee in the new cafe.
Let's talk about to get across. This means to successfully communicate or convey an idea to others. He tried to get his point across, to get something across, his point across in the meeting.
That'll get our point across, right?
Or, I'm not sure what you're trying to get across. Ooh, maybe you need to say it a different way.
Anyways, the point that I'm trying to get across is that social media has made everything just that much more accessible.
Number 12, I love this one, to cheer on. This is when you encourage or support someone, often vocally. Let's go, woohoo, you can do it. The fans cheered on their team. And I could say to you, if you leave a comment, that is your way of supporting me vocally. So I could say, thank you for cheering me on. I couldn't have done it without your support.
Who cheered us on and picked us up when we stumbled.
Someone will be there to cheer us on and pick us up if we fall.
Let's compare this to cheer up. This means to help someone feel happier or to become happier oneself. I brought him a coffee to cheer him up.
Cheer up.
they try with considerable vigor to cheer us up.
Or let's combine these. The fact that you came to cheer me on, let's go Jennifer, that really cheered me up, made me happier. Number 14, carry on. Most students know this. This means to continue with an activity or task despite challenges. She decided to carry on with her studies despite the difficulties.
Carry on.
Let's compare this to carry out. This means to complete or perform an action plan or task. They carried out the experiment successfully.
And we carried it out as a family.
Let's combine these. Let's carry on with the experiments. Notice you need with when you specify the something. Let's carry on with the experiments. Have you carried out? Have you conducted the first test? So remember, you carry on with something and you carry something out. Number 16, to look into something. This means to investigate or examine something in detail. The company is looking into the issue.
I'll look into it.
Let's compare this to look over something. This means to review or examine something briefly or casually. She looked over the document before signing.
Look over this contract.
Let's combine these together. I investigated, I looked into the company, and I didn't find any red flags. Red flags are potential risks or problems. I didn't find any red flags. I still need to look over, review the contract. Let's review to check in with someone. This means to communicate with someone to see how they're doing or if they need assistance. He checked in with his supervisor before leaving for the day. So how could he do this? Well, he would go up to his supervisor and say, "Do you need anything before I leave?"
Thanks for checking in, though.
Now let's compare this to check up on someone. This is when you monitor or observe someone's progress, condition, or behavior to ensure all is well. My dad had an accident, so I check up on him. I observe him and monitor him every day.
Would it kill him to check up on us?
Sometimes to check up on someone is seen as a negative because it suggests that you don't trust someone's abilities. So you often hear people complain and say, "Oh, my boss checks up on me every 5 minutes," suggesting your boss doesn't trust your abilities and needs to monitor you closely.
Are you checking up on me?
Number 20, hang out. You should know this one. This means to spend time with someone socially in a casual way. We hung out at home all weekend. Or it's very common to say to people, "Let's hang out soon. Let's spend time socially soon."
Cool, let's hang out tonight.
Don't confuse this with to hang up, which means to end a phone call. She hung up before they decided where to hang out.
Don't hang up, don't hang up, don't hang up, don't hang up.
22, to break up with someone. Do you know what this means? This means to end a romantic relationship. He broke up with his girlfriend last month.
Are you breaking up with me?
Now, you could also say we broke up. So in this case, because the subject is doing the action, you don't have to say with someone. We broke up. I broke up with him. He broke up with me. We broke up.
We broke up.
Don't confuse this with to break something up. This means to separate something into smaller parts. The teacher broke up the assignment into 3 parts.
From this point, we're going to take the life of the project and break it up into 4 phases so that we can discuss the processes that are appropriate to each.
So if you say, "I broke her up," that sounds weird. That sounds like you divided her into smaller parts. But if you say, "I broke up with her," that sounds sad. You ended your romantic relationship with her. Amazing job. Now let's keep going and you'll learn 15 more phrasal verbs in different everyday situations, like socializing with friends, having coffee at your favorite cafe, and sharing your ideas in a meeting. First, let's review the category of socializing and small talk. So imagine a native speaker walked up to you and said, "When did you take up yoga?" What's the phrasal verb here? When did you take up yoga? To take something up, this is the phrasal verb, and it means to start an activity. And you start it as a regular routine. So you don't just do yoga once. It sounds like you're going to do yoga every week or twice a week. Now remember, your phrasal verb is take up, but you need to conjugate that according to the subject and time reference. So maybe you could say, I've been thinking about, so about is a preposition. I've been thinking about taking up tennis again this summer. So starting tennis as a regular activity.
Honey, when did Peter Griffin take up jogging?
Or maybe someone says to you, don't take up the negative imperative. Don't take up another activity unless you have time for it. That's good advice.
I could take up yoga.
You have the body type.
Or maybe you're thinking, thankfully I found Jennifer's channel shortly after I took up learning English. Is that something that you're thinking? If it is, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's say you're talking to your coworker and you say, he always brings up politics at work. What's the phrasal verb here? To bring something up. This means to start talking about a topic. Maybe you can say, can we not bring up that topic at dinner tonight? So this is a way of asking to not discuss something. Can we not bring that up?
So stop bringing it up. It's not fair.
Or maybe you say, he keeps bringing up her trip. He's clearly impressed. He keeps talking about it.
Thanks, Wally, for bringing that up.
Let's review this sentence and where is the phrasal verb? She really got along with my cousin. Do you know this one? And notice sometimes phrasal verbs have two prepositions. So the phrasal verb here is to get along with someone. And this means to have a good relationship with someone. So you could ask, are you getting along with your new coworkers? Or maybe they would get along better if they communicated more. So notice that conditional structure, and would is a modal verb, and that's why you have the base verb following it. They would get along.
What is it? You two don't get along?
We get along just fine.
Now maybe your friend says to you, you'll never guess who I ran into today. This is a must-know phrasal verb. Do you know it? To run into someone. This means to meet someone but by chance. So you weren't planning on seeing that person.
It's nice to run into you.
You could say, if I run into her again, I'll say hi this time. So if I see her again, but by chance. Or maybe I'll ask her for her phone number.
See, I ran into her at Target.
Or how about this one? I haven't run into anyone I know since I moved back home. So putting it in the negative means you're out in the world, getting groceries, going to the bank, but you haven't seen anyone you know. You haven't run into anyone. Now let's move on and imagine you're at a cafe, and let's review some common phrasal verbs. Maybe you go to order something and they say, sorry, we sold out of chocolate donuts. And you really wanted a chocolate donut. What's the phrasal verb here? Well, it's to sell out of something. So your verb is sell, and that's what you conjugate. And this means to have no more of something to sell to someone. So you could ask, do you think they'll sell out of those donuts again tomorrow?
They just sold out.
Already?
Or maybe, we're about to sell out, so grab one while you can. Now notice here the noun wasn't specified. We're about to sell out. If you specify the noun, that's when you add the additional preposition. We're about to sell out of donuts.
Sold out.
So they sold out of donuts, and you can say, I should cut back on sugar anyway. What's the phrasal verb here? To cut back on something. So notice again, we have that additional preposition on if you specify the something.
I think we need to cut back on our spending.
And if you cut back on something, you reduce the amount of something. So you could say, I've been cutting back on coffee lately. This is the present perfect continuous because it started in the past, maybe last Monday or last month, and it continues until now. I've been cutting back on coffee lately. It was giving me the jitters. This is the jitters. So this is why you need to cut back, reduce the amount. Or someone says to you, if you want to lose weight, I suggest cutting back on carbs. So reducing the amount of carbs. Now notice after suggest, you can use a gerund. I suggest cutting back on carbs.
We're not cutting back on food. Anything else?
Now you're still at the cafe and they say to you, we're trying out a new sugar-free cookie recipe. What's the phrasal verb here? To try out. This means to use or test something to see if it works well. For example, let's try out their new seasonal latte next time. Well, in this case, working well means you either like the taste of it or you don't like the taste of it, but you'll never know until you try it out.
Have you ever tried it out?
Or you can say after you try out the new blender, after you see how the blender works, let me know your thoughts. Was it a good blender, a bad one? Should I buy one? Do you recommend it? Let me know your thoughts. We're still at a cafe and you say to your friend, you only picked at your cookie. You don't like it? So the phrasal verb is to pick at, to pick at. If you pick at your cookie, it means you only eat a small amount of it. So we use this with food specifically. She picked at her salad, but barely touched the rest of her meal. So she ate a small amount of the salad. Maybe she didn't like it, or maybe she wasn't feeling well, she wasn't hungry. Who knows the reason? Or you can say, I was in a Zoom meeting over lunch and could only pick at my sandwich. Because you're on camera, you don't want to eat a big sandwich, so you just try to take a little bite whenever you can.
No, thank you. I'll just pick at yours.
Let's talk about phrasal verbs you can use with meetings and appointments. Someone could ask you, can we set up a meeting for next week? The phrasal verb here is to set up. And of course, this means to schedule or arrange. You can say, I'll be setting up a few interviews this afternoon.
The interview's already set up.
Or you can ask, did you already set up the call with the designer? Did you schedule the call? Did you set it up?
Set up a meeting.
Or if someone asks you, please follow up with us next week. This is a must-know phrasal verb. It's to follow up. Now you can continue on and say with someone on or about something. So if you specify the reason why, you can use a preposition on or about. It doesn't matter which one you use, and native speakers use both equally. Now this means to continue a previous conversation. For example, I was supposed to follow up yesterday, but I forgot. I was supposed to call you to discuss something we previously discussed. Now remember, you can also say, I was supposed to follow up with you on the report or about the report yesterday, but I forgot.
I'm just following up on a chat room message.
Or you can say, it's been 3 days and they haven't responded. Should I follow up or should I wait? So should I continue that discussion we previously had? Or should I wait?
It's too soon.
Maybe your boss asks you, have you checked in with the client yet? What's the phrasal verb here? It's to check in with someone, and again, you can use on or about something. This means to contact someone, and you're doing that to make sure there are no problems. For example, don't forget to check in with them, maybe it's the clients or your team, before you go on vacation. So contact them to make sure they understand everything, they can access everything, there are no problems. Now again, remember, you can say don't forget to check in with them on the invoice or about the invoice before you go on vacation. Contact them to make sure there are no problems with the invoice.
If anyone finds anything, check in with me.
Let's review this sentence. My boss checks in with me every hour. It's annoying. We often use this with frustration because your boss contacts you every hour to make sure there are no problems.
Check back in with me in July.
Now remember that phrasal verbs have different meanings depending on context. So if you're at a hotel and someone says, don't forget to check in before noon.
Checking in?
Yeah, we're checking in.
This means register your arrival at a hotel. But if you're in a meeting and someone says, don't forget to check in before noon, it means to contact someone to make sure there are no issues. So you have to understand the context to know the meaning of phrasal verbs. How about this sentence? I blocked off an hour for our meeting. What's the phrasal verb? To block off. And this means to reserve time in your schedule. So someone might ask, should we block off some time on Friday? Should we reserve some time? Or you can say, I'm blocking off tomorrow afternoon to catch up on emails. So in your calendar, no one will be able to schedule time with you because you blocked it off.
I will block off the afternoon.
Now let's talk about giving compliments. How about this sentence? That outfit really brings out your eyes.
Brown one brings out your eyes.
What's the phrasal verb here? To bring out. Now remember, we previously learned to bring up. So also notice that changing the preposition can completely change the meaning. So here, to bring out, it means to emphasize, highlight, or make something more noticeable or attractive. So I could say to you as a compliment, words of praise, encouragement, support, great choice. That frame brings out the colors in the photo. Or I can say your confidence is starting to bring out the best in your team. So it's highlighting, emphasizing the best qualities. Let's review this sentence. I want to point out how well you handled that irate customer. What's an irate customer? An angry customer, an upset customer. And what's the phrasal verb here? To point out. This means to bring attention to something. For example, you've been doing such a great job lately, and I just wanted to point that out. I wanted to point that out. I wanted to emphasize that. So that would be a very nice thing to say to someone or say in a meeting to someone as well.
Thank you, Amy, for pointing that out.
You're so welcome.
Or you could say, I appreciated that you pointed out how much my design skills have improved. So you can offer this as words of appreciation to someone. This next phrasal verb is a very positive thing to say to someone. You've really stepped up lately.
Thanks for stepping up today.
The phrasal verb is to step up. This means to take on more responsibility, or it can mean to improve one's performance.
I'm thinking about stepping it up.
So your boss might say, I noticed how you stepped up when the deadline was moved. I just wanted to point out the great leadership you showed. Or you can say, she's been stepping up in every way since Peter quit. So maybe she had to take on more responsibility because Peter quit, or she improved her performance because Peter quit, but she really stepped up. Think of all the phrasal verbs you've learned. Now, let's keep going and you'll learn how to take regular verbs like hold and change them into phrasal verbs like hold off. First, let's talk about the regular verb hold. You know what this means, right? To grasp or carry something in one's hand. But what about the phrasal verb to hold off? Do you know what this means? This means to delay or postpone something. Should we sign the contract? Your coworker might ask, and you can say, let's hold off. Now, you can end there. It's a complete sentence, or you can continue back and commonly use the word until. Let's hold off until we hear back from HR. Now, you can also be more precise and describe the action. You would add an additional preposition. Let's hold off on signing the contract until we get more details.
These 10 counties decided to hold off and wait until 2018 to launch their exhibit.
Now, of course, you can put this in the negative. Don't postpone, don't delay. For example, don't hold off on improving, notice that gerund verb because on is a preposition, on improving your English. Do you agree with that advice? If you do, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now let's review one sentence that includes both the regular verb and the phrasal verb. Can you think of your own sentence? Here's mine. Let's hold a meeting to discuss holding off on the project. Don't worry about taking notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's talk about the verb put. Of course, you know that means to place something in a specific position. But what about put off when we turn this into the phrasal verb? This also means to postpone or delay something. For example, they put off something, the wedding, until next year.
I told her it was stupid to put off the wedding just because the hall was gone and she flipped out.
Now, I'm sure you're wondering, but Jennifer, what's the difference between hold off and put off? Great question. Hold off generally is used when you're delaying because you're waiting for more information. But put off is more general. It can be for any reason. For example, they put off getting married. Now notice all of phrasal verbs use prepositions, so your verb that follows is in the ing form, the gerund form. They put off getting married until next year. This is just in general. They're not waiting for more information. It could be for any reason. Now our sentence that combines both. For example, we put off cleaning the garage, we delayed, until next week. Remember, you can use that word until. But we did put the books on the shelf. Can you think of a better one? Now let's talk about the verb pull. Of course, that's exert force to move something closer. But what about pull off? You probably know this one. It's very common. If you pull something off, it means to succeed in achieving something difficult. And that's important. It has to be something difficult. For example, he pulled off something, an incredible victory. So it implies it was difficult. Now, we often use this after we do something successful, but it was difficult. I can't believe we pulled it off. So maybe you had a very tight deadline. You didn't think you could achieve it, but you did.
Wow, we pulled it off.
Now let's try one sentence using both. She pulled the chair closer as I told her how I pulled off improving my speaking skills in only 30 days. That's definitely something difficult, right? Can you pull it off? I'm here to help. Now, of course, the verb break means to separate something into pieces by force. What about break off, the phrasal verb? This means to suddenly stop or end something. This is often used with relationships, agreements, or conversations. For example, I can't believe she broke off her engagement. So she was engaged, which means she agreed to get married, but then she broke it off. She ended the engagement. She's no longer going to get married.
Obviously, I felt it deep enough to break off my engagement, change my entire life, and tell all of you.
Now, if it's obvious that you're talking about her engagement, you can say, I can't believe she broke it off. So you can use the pronoun it to replace engagement. Now let's try both in one sentence. You broke my heart by breaking off our engagement. Of course, the verb call means to contact someone by phone, but what about call off? This means to cancel an event. So an event could be a meeting. They called off the meeting. They canceled it.
With the rise of jihadist violence, they began to receive threats to call off their events, which they refused to heed.
Now again, you might be wondering what's the difference between break off and call off. Well, break off is with relationships or agreements. They're personal and emotional, like an engagement. But call off is used with events. These can be business events or community events. So you can say, we broke off our engagement. We ended our engagement. But you can say we called off the wedding because the wedding is an event. So you can say we canceled the wedding. We called off the wedding. Now let's try one sentence with both. She called her friend to let her know that the organizers called off, canceled the event. Of course, the verb cut means to divide or remove something using a sharp tool. What about cut off? Well, this is when you interrupt or stop someone or something abruptly. For example, she cut me off in the middle of my story. So I was talking and then she said, oh, I want to tell you something. She cut me off.
So I started to say that, and she just cut me right off.
Notice in the clip, Obama said, she just cut me right off. Using right is there for emphasis. It's emphasizing the fact that Barack was cut off. Now, you can use this more politely and say, sorry to cut you off, but I accidentally cut the ribbon too short. So notice that one sentence used both. Now, the regular verb drop is when you let something fall on purpose or accidentally. But what about drop off? You know this one, right? This is when you deliver something or someone to a location. For example, you can say to your friend or your sister, I'll drop you off at the station. Now, you could ask, when is the package being dropped off? Notice this is the passive voice because the package is receiving the action, not doing the action. Let's try one with both. She dropped her pen as she dropped off the reports. The regular verb get, of course, means to obtain or receive something. What about get off? You definitely need to know this one. It means to exit a form of transportation. It can also mean end work for the day. Both of these are very commonly used. You can ask, where do we get off? Now, this would be for transportation. Where do we get off? The train, subway, bus, plane, or boat?
That means you will probably be running late when you get off the train.
But we do not use this with car or van or truck. You would say, please get out of my car to mean exit. Now, you can also ask, what time do you get off? This means what time do you get off work, but you don't need to add the word work. And it means what time do you finish working for the day? What time do you get off? Now let's try one sentence with both. He got some advice, he received some advice from a stranger before he got off the train, before he left the train. Now, of course, the regular verb give is to offer or present something to someone, but what about give off? Ooh. This isn't the most common, but it is useful to know. This means to emit or produce something such as light, heat, or a smell. For example, the fire gave off a lot of smoke. So the fire emitted, produced a lot of smoke.
All things that gave off heat were part of an irreversible process that was happening everywhere.
You can use this in a more positive way. The candles gave off a warm glow as she gave a heartfelt speech. So notice I used both in that one sentence. Now, of course, the verb go means to move from one place to another. What about go off? If something goes off, it means it activates or suddenly makes noise. This is commonly used with alarms and detectors. So you hear this every day, I imagine. But what if you say, oh no, my alarm started going off at midnight? So for some reason, your alarm activated, produced noise at midnight.
I set an alarm, the alarm went off, I did get out of bed, but then I snoozed it.
Or someone might say, open the window before the smoke detector goes off, before the smoke detector activates. Now let's try one sentence with both. Let's go outside until the alarm stops going off. So notice, stops going off. Let's talk about keep. Of course, that means to retain or maintain something. But what about keep off? This means to avoid stepping on or using something. I automatically think of signs that I commonly see that say, please keep off the grass. Please do not step on the grass. I also see signs that say, please keep your pets off the grass. Because, of course, pets can damage it.
And so they got to the tomb of the unknown soldier, and there was a sign that said, keep off the grass. And they thought, dare we?
Now let's look at one sentence with both. She kept off the muddy path, so she didn't go on. She kept off the muddy path to keep her shoes dry. The regular verb let means to allow or permit. What about let off? I really like this phrasal verb. This means to excuse someone from punishment or responsibility. For example, the judge let him off. This means the judge did not punish him. Maybe she gave him a warning. So you could continue that thought and say the judge let him off with a warning. So you add that additional preposition with and then something, a warning. So he received a warning instead of punishment.
She was not going to let me off the hook. And at the time, I wasn't happy about it, but now I'm glad she pressed me like that.
Did you notice that Barack added a few additional words? She wasn't going to let me off the hook. So you could say my boss let me off the hook. So you just add the two words the hook. This means my boss didn't punish me even though I deserved it. So it's a positive thing for me. Let's try one sentence with both. I let my brother borrow my car and he got a parking ticket. Thankfully, the officer let me off, didn't punish me, when I told him it was my brother's fault. So I threw my brother under the bus. Now let's talk about kick. This means, of course, to strike with the foot, but what about kick off? Do you know this one? This means to start an event or an activity. This is commonly used with sports. The game kicked off at 7 p.m. The game started. Or you can ask, when are we kicking off the project? This is commonly used in a business context. It means, when are we starting the project?
And they're very non-digital people, but it's almost like kicking off a discussion.
So let's look at one sentence with both. She kicked the ball to kick off the game, which is where this phrasal verb comes from. The verb rip means to tear something apart forcefully, but what about rip off? Native speakers use this a lot. This means to cheat or overcharge someone. She totally ripped me off. She told me this is a real Louis Vuitton bag, so she cheated me. I paid a lot of money for the bag and it was a fake.
Well, I hope he made a mistake because he ripped me off, so I hope he got ripped off.
Now, we commonly use this with the verb feel. So ripped off is in the ed form, which means it's being used as an adjective. I feel ripped off every time I buy food at the airport, which is true. I feel like I'm being cheated. Now, you can also say $5 for a bottle of water. What a ripoff. So notice here, a ripoff, this is the noun form. So get comfortable with the different forms, the active verb, the adjective form, and the noun form. Let's look at one example using both, and we'll use the active verb. The store ripped her off. The store cheated her, claiming she ripped her jeans on purpose and therefore couldn't return them. Of course, the verb run means to move quickly on foot. What about run off? This has a similar meaning. This means to leave suddenly, often to escape. And the people are usually running when they run off. But it's not a requirement. They can run off in a car, for example, because it's just leave suddenly. So you can say, I can't believe Ross ran off with his family's savings. So Ross left suddenly and he took his family's savings. So often this is used in a very negative way.
And our middleman, long story short, ran off with our money.
Oh no.
And we never heard from him again.
Or you can say, I can't believe Ross ran off with his boss's wife, which is how this is also commonly used. So two people who usually shouldn't be together leave suddenly, and they leave their partners behind.
My wife ran off with my business partner after embezzling $1 million from my frozen yogurt franchise.
So let's use one sentence with both. She ran after the thief when she saw him running off with a stolen bag. Amazing job. Now you'll learn 50 more phrasal verbs, but I'm going to challenge you. First, you'll complete a quiz. Next, you'll learn the phrasal verb. Finally, you'll complete another quiz. This will make sure you permanently remember these phrasal verbs. Let's start the quiz. Question 1. The phrasal verb used to invite someone on a romantic date is... Now, I'm only going to give you 3 seconds for each question. So hit pause, take as much time as you need, and when you're ready, hit play to see the answer. The phrasal verb is to ask out. Question 2. If you like a genre of music, you can say, I'm really country music. I'm really into country music. Remember, I'm going to explain every single phrasal verb in detail, so don't worry if this test is difficult. Number 3, if a movie made you sad, you can say, that movie really me down. That movie really brought me down. Number 4, if you think someone should be happier, you can say cheer up, cheer up. Number 5, do you have time to... the dry cleaning on your way home? Do you have time to pick up? Number 6, you see that box? Can you at the post office? Can you drop it off? Number 7, we ended up at home. We ended up staying at home. Number 8, which phrasal verb is used to reject someone or something? To turn down. Number 9, when you complete a form, you can use both fill in and fill out. This is true. Number 10, how did you that Maria was fired? How did you find out? So how did you do with that quiz? Was it easy or difficult? Share your score in the comments, and now I'll explain every phrasal verb in detail with example sentences. Number 1, to ask someone out. Now pay attention to the sentence structure because notice here I'm using someone. You only ask someone out. You don't ask something out. And here's the reason why. When you ask someone out, it's to invite them on a romantic evening together, also known as a date. So to ask someone out, you invite them on a date. A date is a romantic evening spent with someone. Of course, it doesn't have to be an evening. It could be a morning coffee date or an afternoon date as well. But I just said evening because most of the time it is in the evening. So let me give you an example sentence. Why hasn't Jim asked Maria out yet? He's obviously into her. So notice here, why hasn't Jim asked Maria out? Ask someone out. Our someone is Maria. Now, of course, you need the subject who's doing the action. So Jim is inviting Maria on a date. A date is always romantic, right? Now, Maria could say no, and we're going to talk about that later on in one of our phrasal verbs. So let me give you that example again. Why hasn't Jim asked Maria out yet? He's obviously into her. Now you might be wondering, Jennifer, what does that mean? He's obviously into her. Well, that's our next phrasal verb, to be into someone, to be into someone. Now here, I'll point out that you can also be into something. But first, let's talk about to be into someone. When you're into someone, I'm sure you notice based on the context, but it means to like someone romantically. Now, the context is really important because I'm going to give you a musician who I'm really into. I'm really into Jack Johnson. Now, when I say that, oh, I'm really into Jack Johnson, I don't like Jack Johnson romantically, although he is pretty cute, I guess, but I don't like him romantically, but I really like his music. So if you use into someone, it depends on the context, but there is this meaning of liking. And for the most part, that liking is romantic. So if I said, Jim is into Maria, he likes her romantically. But if I'm talking about being into a celebrity or a musician, an actor, it's possible that I just like them, but not necessarily romantically. So keep that in mind. Now remember I said you could also be into something. Now in this case, we're talking about liking something, and it's usually an activity or a hobby. So I was really into Jack Johnson when I was really into playing ukulele and playing guitar. Jack Johnson is an amazing musician. He plays guitar and he plays ukulele. So I was really into him, and mainly when I was into playing ukulele and playing guitar. Those are two activities I don't really do much anymore, simply because I don't have time. It isn't a priority for me to do those activities right now at this stage in my life. Although one day I would definitely like to do them again. Now, so you could talk about any hobby or activity. Oh, I'm really into going hiking. I'm really into playing video games. So we use this with hobbies and activities mainly. Our next phrasal verb, to bring someone down. To bring someone down is to make someone unhappy. But there's that transition because that person was happy and then something happened to bring them down, and now they're not happy, or they're at least less happy than they were before. So I could say that movie really brought me down. Now notice here, my subject is the movie. The movie brought me down. I could also use a person. My boss brought me down. So something or someone can bring someone down. That movie brought me down. So I was happy, and then I watched the movie, and now I'm not happy or I'm less happy. Probably because the movie was very sad or depressing, something like that. Number 4, to cheer up. So you can think of this as the opposite. To cheer someone up is to make them happier. Now we commonly use this in the imperative. Cheer up. Cheer up, Julie. Cheer up. Don't be sad. Cheer up. So we commonly use this in the imperative, but you can use it in other ways. For example, I could say, I took my friend out to lunch to cheer her up. To cheer her up. So that's the reason why. I wanted to make her happier. To cheer her up. Number 5, to pick someone or something up. This is one of the most common phrasal verbs. You probably know it. But did you know you can also pick something up? You pick someone up and you also pick something up. And that's when you take an object or a person from one location to another location. So of course you might know it in the sense of, I pick my kids up after school. Or I pick my husband up after work, right? That's probably how you know it. But you can use it with a something. Maybe your husband could call you and say, oh, hey, can you pick milk up on your way home? Can you pick milk up? So you're going to go to a location, the store, get milk, and take it to another location, your home. Can you pick milk up on your way home? It's very common to get a call from someone and they ask you, oh, hey, can you pick this up? Can you pick this up on your way home? And that something is a grocery item or something for your home. So now you know how to use it with a someone and a something. And what's the opposite of to pick someone up? Well, it's to drop someone off. And you can also drop something off. When you drop someone or something off, it's to leave someone or something at a specific location. So of course you could say, I dropped my husband off at work. I dropped my friend off at the airport. Now, you might also ask someone, can you drop this letter off on your way to work? So they take the letter and they leave it somewhere in a different location, the post office or a mailbox. Can you drop this letter off on your way to work? Number 7, to end up. To end up is a very useful phrasal verb. We use it to say that you eventually do something or eventually decide something. So you might say, I ended up asking Julie out. I ended up asking Julie out. Who was our first example? I can't remember. Oh, it wasn't Julie. It was Jim and Maria. So let me give that again. Jim ended up asking Maria out. So remember before I said, why hasn't Jim asked Maria out yet? So now remember, to end up, that's to eventually do something. So after a period of time. So Jim ended up asking Maria out, but she turned him down. Remember I said at the beginning, I'm going to teach you a phrasal verb if Maria, I was going to say Julie again, if Maria says no, well, that's to turn someone down. That's our next phrasal verb, to turn someone down. Now you can also turn something down. Can you think of something that you might say no to? How about a job offer? Something like that. So to turn someone down, to turn something down, is when you receive an invitation or a proposal to do something and you say no. You decline, you refuse, you reject, you say no. So Maria turned Jim down. Now you might also say, I was turned down for the job. I was turned down. Now you could turn that into an active sentence. They turned me down. I was turned down by the company. They turned me down. So in this specific phrasal verb, it is commonly used in the passive. So I would get comfortable with the passive, but you can use it in the active, of course, as well. Number 9, to fill in or to fill out forms. Okay, so notice here I gave you 2 prepositions. I know students get confused. What's the difference between fill in and fill out? There is no difference. So specifically with forms, that's the only time that there is no difference. When you're entering information into a form, you're filling in that form. You're also filling out that form. It doesn't matter which preposition you use. And honestly, I use both of them interchangeably. So I just change between fill in, fill out. I use both, and you can too. So if you go to an office, they might say, after you fill in this form, or after you fill out this form, drop it off at reception. Notice, drop it off at reception. So take it to reception and leave it there. Drop it off at reception. Our final phrasal verb, to find out. To find out is when you understand something, you learn something, or you discover something. So maybe, going back to our character Jim, so maybe Jim could say, how did you find out that Maria turned me down? So maybe Jim is a little embarrassed. He thought this was just a secret, nobody knew. But then a friend tried to cheer him up because he knew Maria turned him down after he asked her out. Notice all our phrasal verbs. So Jim could say, how did you find out that Maria turned me down? So how did you discover this? How did you learn this? How did you find this out? And we use this when you want to get information as well. So I might say, I need to find out when the store closes because I have a package I need to drop off, but I don't know when they close. I need to find that out. So learn or discover that specific information. So now that you understand all of these phrasal verbs, how about we do the quiz from the beginning again? And then you can compare your score from the first time to the second time. So let's do that same quiz now. Question 1. The phrasal verb used to invite someone on a romantic date is... The phrasal verb is to ask out. Question 2. If you like a genre of music, you can say, I'm really country music. I'm really into country music. Number 3. If a movie made you sad, you can say, that movie really me down. That movie really brought me down. Number 4, if you think someone should be happier, you can say cheer up, cheer up. Number 5, do you have time to the dry cleaning on your way home? Do you have time to pick up? Number 6, you see that box? Can you at the post office? Can you drop it off? Number 7, we ended up at home. We ended up staying at home. Number 8, which phrasal verb is used to reject someone or something? To turn down. Number 9, when you complete a form, you can use both fill in and fill out. This is true. Number 10, how did you that Maria was fired? How did you find out? Question 1, please bear me while I look up your file. Please bear with me while I look up your file. Question 2, the phrasal verb to attend to means to work on. Number 3, why are you so angry? You need to cool down. Number 4, the phrasal verb for repair is fix up. Number 5, the phrasal verb for to discuss something so you can reach an agreement is to hash out. To hash out. Number 6, if someone is being too serious, you can tell them to lighten up. Lighten up. You're being too serious. Lighten up. Number 7, after years of studying English, my hard work has finally paid. My hard work has finally paid off. Number 8, we shouldn't rule out a graphic designer. We shouldn't rule out hiring a graphic designer. Number 9, my boss for being late again. My boss chewed me out for being late again. And number 10, let's give everyone a few minutes before we begin. To settle in. So, how did you do with that quiz? Was it easy, difficult? Share your score in the comments below. And now I'm going to explain every single phrasal verb in detail. So let's do that now. To bear with someone. This is a very common phrasal verb. It has a simple meaning. It means to be patient with someone. So we use this a lot with customer service representatives or anytime someone is providing you with a service. Now, it's very common when that person is providing you with that service to say, please bear with me. Please bear with me. Please be patient. So notice our verb tense, that's in the imperative, So we're starting with the base verb. Now, if you use this verb in other verb tenses, it's an irregular verb. The past simple is bore, and the past participle is, any idea? It's born. That's right, born, with an optional E for spelling, but pronunciation is exactly the same. In the past simple, you could say, I bore with him for 20 minutes. I was patient with him for 20 minutes. And in the past participle, you can use this in the present perfect. You might say, I've borne with you for 20 minutes. Our next phrasal verb is to attend to. Now notice we're using the verb attend. And I could say, last night I attended the party. But that's not a phrasal verb. That's just a regular verb because I don't have a preposition. I attended the party. I went to the party. But if we use the phrasal verb attend to, the meaning is different. I could say I attended to the party. Now, in this case, this means that I worked on or I paid attention to the party. So how could you work on a party? Well, you could work on organizing a party. So organizing all the details, sending out the invitations, buying the food, cleaning the apartment, getting the decorations. I attended to the party. So pay attention because the verb attend and the phrasal verb attend to have different meanings. Our next phrasal verb, to cool down. To cool down. We use this when someone is really angry, upset, or frustrated and you want them to relax. You can say, cool down, cool down. So let's say a client has been sending you a lot of emails and you're feeling really angry, irritated, annoyed, frustrated with that client. But before you call that client, you should definitely cool down. You need to take a minute and relax because you don't want to call that client when you're angry and frustrated and annoyed. You need to cool down, relax, chill. Our next phrasal verb, to fix something up. When you fix something up, it means you repair it or you change it in order to improve it. Now in this case, when you change it, it's not necessarily broken. It could be that it's functioning, but you want to improve it. So you make some changes to it. You fix it up. So for example, I could say Sally loves fixing up old cars in her free time. Fixing up old cars. So she repairs them, but it could also mean that she just changes them. Maybe the car is working perfectly, but she changes it. She changes the color or she adds something to it. She fixes it up. Now this is a very common phrasal verb around the house because there's always something to fix up, right? To change, to repair, to improve. Our next phrasal verb, to hash something out. When you hash something out, it means you talk about something specific with other people, and you do that because you want to get agreement. You want to get agreement on the details. So you can use this when you're planning a conference, planning a party, planning a project, any kind of event. And of course, with a project or conference, there are many details. The date, the time, who's doing what. So you need to hash out those details. You need to talk about them to get agreement. Okay, we agreed to the time of the conference. We hashed it out. We hashed out the time of the conference. Our next phrasal verb, to lighten up. Now remember, I already taught you to cool down, and that's when you're really angry, frustrated, annoyed, and you want to relax. Well, when you tell someone to lighten up, you also want them to relax, but they're not angry, frustrated, or annoyed. They're just being too serious. That's it. They're being too serious. They don't have a sense of humor. So maybe you were joking around with a coworker and they took it too seriously and you just wanted to have some fun and joke around. but they're too serious. So you might say, lighten up, laugh a little, smile a little. You're too serious. So someone who's always like this, you know, they're not smiling, they're not laughing, they're just always very serious. You might want to tell that person to lighten up, smile, relax, laugh. But just remember, it isn't the same as cool down, because cool down, you're angry and annoyed. Lighten up, you're too serious. That's the difference between the two. Our next phrasal verb, to pay off. Now, when something pays off, it means that you see the benefit of the something. So let's say you spent the last month at home studying for a big exam. And you took the exam and you passed. You got a really high mark. You can say, all my studying paid off. So remember, something pays off. All my studying paid off. I now see the benefit of all the studying I did. So we use this a lot for any kind of work or effort that you put in. Now, it can be mental work for studying for your job, but it can also be physical work as well. So all your dieting, your exercising paid off because now you lost weight, you're stronger, you see the benefit of all your work. So we can use this with both mental work and physical work. Our next phrasal verb, to rule out. We use this when something prevents something else from happening. So a classic example, we have COVID and we have traveling. Now, COVID is preventing traveling from happening, right? So we can say COVID ruled out traveling, right? COVID prevented traveling. COVID ruled out traveling. Our next phrasal verb, to chew someone out. To chew someone out. This is when you tell someone that they've done something wrong, but you tell them angrily. So you don't tell them calmly, you know, you made a mistake, you shouldn't have done that. No, you're angry. So you might yell a little, you might use language that you normally wouldn't. You're angry, somebody did something wrong, and you tell them. So maybe your boss chewed you out because you were late for an important meeting. So your boss was not calm, your boss was angry. Why were you late? You shouldn't have been late. Why haven't I fired you yet? He chews you out. Or maybe you're on a sports team and your coach chewed you out because you missed an important practice. Now, if somebody chews you out and they're really angry, what phrasal verb goes with that? Phrasal verb that we've already learned. Cool down, right? Because if somebody's angry, why were you late? You can say, cool down, relax. And then you can explain why you were late. Our final phrasal verb, to settle in. When you settle in, it means you get comfortable in a new environment. And that new environment is generally a new house, a new school, a new workplace. And of course, at the beginning, you're not comfortable just because everything is new, right? But then you need some time to settle in. So settle in just means to get comfortable in a new environment. So let's say you move to a new city and a few weeks later, a friend could ask you, oh, have you settled in? Have you settled in? So they're just asking you, do you feel comfortable in your new city? And then you might reply back and say, yeah, I've settled in, or no, I haven't settled in yet. Now that you know how to use all of these phrasal verbs, how about we do the exact same quiz from the very beginning, and you can compare your score from the first time to this time. So let's do that quiz again now. Question 1, please bear me while I look up your file. Please bear with me while I look up your file. Question 2, the phrasal verb to attend to means to work on. Number 3, why are you so angry? You need to cool. You need to cool down. Number 4, the phrasal verb for repair is fix up. Number 5, the phrasal verb for to discuss something so you can reach an agreement is to hash out. To hash out. Number 6, if someone is being too serious, you can tell them to lighten up. Lighten up. You're being too serious. Lighten up. Number 7, after years of studying English, my hard work has finally paid. My hard work has finally paid off. Number 8, we shouldn't rule out a graphic designer. We shouldn't rule out hiring a graphic designer. Number 9, my boss for being late again. My boss chewed me out for being late again. And number 10, let's give everyone a few minutes before we begin. To settle in. Question 1, the phrasal verb used when you gradually introduce a new rule, policy, or law is? The phrasal verb is to phase in. Question 2, if you want to reserve a specific time in your calendar, you can block it. You can block it off. Question 3, when the fire alarm went off, everyone of the building. Everyone cleared out of the building. Question 4, we'll have to air conditioning this summer. We'll have to do without. Question 5, if someone is removed from a position against their will, they are forced out of that position. Number 6, the phrasal verb used when information becomes clear in one's mind is to sink in. Question 7, the government had to a lot of companies during the pandemic. The government had to bail out. Question 8, oh no, I think I behind my phone. I think I left behind my phone. Question 9, you don't want to miss this amazing opportunity. Miss out on. And question 10, the phrasal verb for arrive is show up. So how did you do with that quiz? Was it easy or was it difficult? Now I'll explain every phrasal verb in detail with the definition and example sentence as well. To phase something in. When you phase something in, it means that you introduce something new. but you introduce it gradually, which means little by little. And generally, what we're introducing is a new law, a new rule, a new regulation, or a new policy. So let's say that your company has a new policy and they're introducing a dress code. A dress code will tell you what you can and cannot wear to work. Now, let's say they announce the new dress code, but they say we're phasing in the new dress code over the next 2 months. Now, why would they want to introduce it little by little? Well, maybe it's because they want to give you time to prepare. You might have to go out and buy new clothing, for example. So you might have to save money to do that and get comfortable doing that as well. So maybe the first week they introduce the new shirts that they want you to wear. And then the next week it's the new shoes. And the following week it's the new pants. And little by little they phase in the new dress code. Number 2, to block off. Now, the thing about phrasal verbs is they're always used in a very specific context. So in this context of block off, we're talking specifically about time in your calendar or on your schedule. So you're blocking off time. So what does that mean? It means that you reserve that time for a specific task or activity. And you reserve that time so no one else can schedule a meeting with you, or no one else can assign you a task during those specific blocks of time because you block them off. So let's say you're preparing for the IELTS and you might block off Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 7 to 9 in your calendar. And that is the time you're going to spend studying for IELTS. Or if you have an important deadline at work, you might block off the entire day. So you might block off Monday and just focus on that task so you can meet the deadline. So this is probably something you do every single day anyway for time management purposes, and now you know how to explain that naturally in English. Number 3, to clear out. And again, remember, phrasal verbs are used in a very specific context. And in this context, we're talking about clearing out of a location, like a restaurant or even a conference, an office, a mall, any location that has a lot of people in it generally. And when people clear out of a location, it means they simply leave the location, but that location then becomes empty. So the majority or all of the people leave a location. That's when you clear out of a location. So let's say you go to lunch at a restaurant around 1:30 and it's really busy. You get the last available table. And you're eating your lunch, you're talking to your coworker, and then around 2:30, you look around and you notice that you're the only table left in the restaurant. And remember, the restaurant was full when you got there. So you could turn to your coworker and say, wow, it really cleared out, which means everybody left the restaurant. Number 4, to do without something. This is a really useful one because it's a fact of life. You're going to have to do without certain things at certain times in your life. So when you do without something, it means you manage despite the lack of. And it's the lack of the something that you do without. So let me give you an example. Maybe finances are a little tight, you didn't get that bonus you were hoping for, so you might say, we'll have to do without a cleaner for the next few months. Do without a cleaner. So a cleaner is someone who cleans your house, a house cleaner. Now, previously, a lot of people called this a maid. I know many people in certain countries still call it a maid. In North America, it's considered outdated and even a little politically incorrect to call someone a maid. We now call them house cleaners. So just so you know, it's more politically correct to use house cleaner. So you have to manage your day-to-day, manage your house despite the lack of a house cleaner. We have to do without a house cleaner because I didn't get the bonus. So you can use this in a personal context like I just gave you, or you can use this in a work context as well. Maybe your assistant quit and you're having trouble finding a new assistant. So you might say, well, I guess I'll have to do without an assistant for the next month, which means you have to manage all your work without an assistant. Do without something. It's a very useful phrasal verb because we all have to do without certain things at certain points in our life. Our next phrasal verb, to force out. This is a very useful business phrasal verb. You're going to hear it in the media, newspapers, all the time. When someone is forced out, it means that they are asked to leave their position, but it wasn't their decision to do so. Notice the sentence structure I used. I put this in the passive, to be forced out. For example, the CEO was forced out after the scandal. So there's a scandal. Obviously, it didn't look good for the CEO. So the company wanted him to leave. The CEO himself did not want to leave, but the company wanted him to leave. So the CEO was forced out. Now, if you use it in the active sentence, you'd be talking about who forced out the CEO. So you might say the board of directors forced the CEO out after the scandal. So you can absolutely use this in the active, but it's very commonly used in the passive. Our next phrasal verb, number 6, to sink in. When something sinks in, it becomes clear in your mind. And the something that's sinking in is information, news, an event. For example, it took him a while before his mother's death sunk in. So his mother died, but that fact, that event, didn't sink in for some time. It didn't become clear. So he didn't process it, he didn't fully understand it, he didn't fully accept it as a fact, as a reality for some time. So the event, his mother's death, didn't sink in. So we do use this a lot for tragic events, but we can also use this with difficult or complicated information. For example, let's say your coworker is explaining a new accounting software, and it's pretty technical. So your coworker is explaining it quite quickly, and you might say, give me a minute to let that sink in. So that is the information your coworker was just explaining. And for that, the information to sink in, it means for you to fully understand it, to fully process it. So we can use it for tragic events, but we can also use this for complicated information. Number 7, to bail out. This is another must-know business phrasal verb, but you can also use it in your personal life as well. When you bail someone out, it means that you rescue them, and you rescue them from a financially difficult situation. So remember that CEO that was forced out in our previous example? Well, maybe he had a sister that bailed him out. His sister bailed him out, which means his sister helped him financially. So maybe she gave him a place to stay because he couldn't afford his rent. She gave him food because he couldn't afford groceries. And she gave him money because he didn't have any. His sister bailed him out. So we can use it in a personal context, but this is commonly used in a business context in the sense of the government bailing out companies because they're about to go bankrupt. And why would the government do that? Well, because that company is important for the economy. For example, in the US, the company Chrysler, which is an automobile company, they've been bailed out by the government multiple times. Chrysler as a company has almost gone bankrupt multiple times, and the government has come in and bailed the company out. They bailed Chrysler out. Number 8, to leave something behind. This is a very useful one in your everyday vocabulary. When you leave something behind, it simply means that you forget something at a specific location. So we do this all the time, right? We go to a restaurant, a cafe, we put our phone on the counter, we get our coffee, and we go. And oh no, I left my phone behind. I think I left my phone behind at the cafe. So it's just the same as saying, I think I forgot my phone at the cafe. You can use this with any object. You can leave behind your keys, your sweater, your jacket, your computer, whatever you want. So this is a very useful one. So what about you? Have you ever left something important behind? Maybe you left your cell phone behind, or your laptop behind, or important family photos behind. Have you ever left something behind? Let us know in the comments. Number 9, to miss out on something. To miss out on something. And this is when you miss an important opportunity or an experience that shouldn't have been missed. So let's say that you work for Tesla and Elon Musk was making an appearance at your office that day, and you were going to get to meet Elon Musk. But your bus was late and you didn't get to work on time and you didn't get to meet Elon Musk. You, my friend, just missed out on an opportunity of a lifetime. You missed out on meeting Elon Musk. So you could say, I can't believe I missed out. You can just end it there. I can't believe I missed out. If you want to continue, you can say, I can't believe I missed out on meeting Elon Musk. And finally, number 10, to show up. To show up has a very simple definition. It means to appear or arrive. Native speakers don't really use appear or arrive. We use show up. For example, what time did you show up to the party? I would never say, what time did you arrive to the party? I wouldn't say that. That sounds unnatural, outdated, too formal. I would say, what time did you show up? What time did you show up to the party? What time did you show up last night? Now, let's say you got to work late one day and your boss is standing at your desk as you're walking to your desk and you're 45 minutes late, and your boss might look at you and say, oh, how nice of you to finally show up. That's obviously sarcastic, but this happens a lot if you get to a party really late, or even if you're just having dinner at home with your husband or your wife. But dinner is normally at 7 and you don't get home till 7:30, and your husband or your wife has been waiting and waiting and waiting. When you get home, they might say, oh, how nice of you to finally show up. So we use this a lot in a sarcastic way when someone is late, but we also use it just to talk about getting somewhere. Oh, I showed up at, and then you say the time. So now that you feel more comfortable with these phrasal verbs, how about we do the exact same quiz again, and you can compare your score from the first time to the second time. So let's do that quiz again now. Question 1. The phrasal verb used when you gradually introduce a new rule, policy, or law is? The phrasal verb is to phase in. Question 2, if you want to reserve a specific time in your calendar, you can block it. You can block it off. Question 3, when the fire alarm went off, everyone of the building. Everyone cleared out of the building. Question 4, we'll have to air conditioning this summer. We'll have to do without. Question 5, if someone is removed from a position against their will, they are forced out of that position. Number 6, the phrasal verb used when information becomes clear in one's mind is to sink in. Question 7, the government had to a lot of companies during the pandemic. The government had to bail out. Question 8, oh no, I think I behind my phone. I think I left behind my phone. Question 9, you don't want to miss this amazing opportunity. Miss out on. And question 10, the phrasal verb for arrive is show up. Question 1, this new app I downloaded, so much memory. This new app I downloaded takes up. Question 2, when a company expands into other locations, it branches out. Question 3, the phrasal verb used when you write something down is jot down. Question 4, can you the performance reports next week? Can you carry out? Question 5, I'm having a hard time the assignment. I'm having a hard time keeping up with. Question 6, if you enter your information in a form, you fill in or fill out. So C. Question 7, the CEO might this week. The CEO might drop in. Question 8, if you delay an event, you push it back. Question 9, if you cancel an event, you call it off. And question 10, I'm not sure who's presenting. We're still the details. We're still sorting out the details. So how did you do with that quiz? Share your score in the comments, and now I'll explain each phrasal verb in detail. 1, to take up. This means to occupy or to fill. Now, we use this specifically with 2 different nouns. You can take up time and you can take up space, and they're both very commonly used. For example, I could say, this meeting took up my whole morning. So it occupied or filled the amount of time. Now, we can also use this with space. For example, I need a new couch because my couch takes up too much space. So it occupies or fills space. So remember, you can use this with both time and space, and they're both very commonly used. Number 2, to branch out. Now this means to expand, and we use this specifically in a business context. So let's say you're in a meeting and you're discussing how to increase your profits. You might suggest branching out into new markets. So if you only sell in North America, you can branch out, expand, and sell in Europe or in Asia, Africa, for example. We need to branch out into new markets. Number 3, this is a fun one, to jot down. Now you would probably understand this from context. In the meeting, I jotted down a few notes. I jotted down a few notes. So it's the exact same thing as write down. I wrote down a few notes, but it's very commonly used. So someone might ask you, maybe your boss or a colleague even, might say, hey, can you jot this down? And then they might give you a number or a date or a location and you write it down. Now, of course, not many people use pen and paper anymore, right? We take electronic notes. But if your colleague asks you to jot something down, you can absolutely take out your phone and make a note in your phone. Jot it down in your phone. Write it down in your phone. So this still applies even though we don't really use pen and paper much. Number 4, to carry out. This means to perform or to conduct, and we use this specifically in a business context. For example, next week we're carrying out our customer surveys, our student surveys. We're carrying out our surveys. We're conducting them. We're performing them. So I'm just going to do the survey. That's the simplest way to say it. Next week we're doing the surveys. We're carrying out the surveys. Number 5, this is an important one, so make sure you jot it down. Number 5, to keep up with something. This means to make sufficient progress on. Let's say that you have this many orders and it's your job to fulfill those orders. If you fulfill this many, you've kept up with the orders. You've made sufficient progress. But if you fulfill this many, or this many, or this many, or anything less than the total number of orders, then you haven't kept up with the orders. You haven't made sufficient progress on. Now, of course, you can use this with many things other than orders. You can use it with your studies, your reading list, your chores, your performance reports, your filing, your scheduling. You can use it with many, many, many other tasks. Number 6, to fill out or to fill in a form. Now, this is one that confuses a lot of students, and they ask me, do I fill out a form? Do I fill in the form? What's the difference? The reality is there is no difference, specifically when we're talking about a form. Now, when you have to fill out an application, you could also fill in an application. Fill out your passport renewal. You can fill in your passport renewal. In this specific context, there's no difference. Number 7, to drop in. This is a great phrasal verb because you can use it both in a business context or a social context. Now, to drop in simply means to visit. So if you're talking to a friend and you're planning to visit that friend, you can say, how about I drop in Saturday morning? How about I visit Saturday morning? Now, in a business context, you might have a client that wants to drop in, that wants to visit, or you might drop in on a client just to say hello and to keep that relationship going. So you can use this in both a social and a business context. Number 8, to push back. This means to delay or postpone in the context of a scheduled event. So a scheduled event like a meeting. Let's say the meeting was scheduled for Monday, but everyone is really busy on Monday, well then push the meeting back until Wednesday. Postpone it until Wednesday. Now you can use this in a social context, so you might be planning your wedding anniversary and it's your 10-year wedding anniversary and the actual date is March 30th, but everyone is busy. So you might push it back until the middle of April so more people can attend. Well, everyone's busy, so let's push back the party until next week, until 2 weeks from now. So you can push back a scheduled event, which means to delay or postpone. Number 9, to call off. Now, this means to cancel a scheduled event. So remember in our last one, to push back, you delay or postpone. But the other alternative is simply to cancel it. But generally, when you call something off, it's because there were some problems or issues associated with it. But the problem or issue could be a scheduling conflict and just people couldn't attend. So let's say you were planning a conference for the summer, but nobody registered because everyone's really busy in the summer. So you might discuss it with your team and say, let's call off the conference. Attendance is too low, so let's call it off. Let's cancel it. Now you can also use this in a social context. You might call off your wedding. But if you canceled your wedding, then most likely there was a problem, an issue, a big one, right? So in that context, in a social event, most people will wonder what happened. Why did they call off their wedding? Why did they call off their anniversary? They're going to assume that something is wrong. And number 10, to sort out. This means to organize or to fix if there's a problem. For example, I need to sort out my travel plans. So it could mean I just need to organize them. So I need to decide when I'm going to travel, what airline I'm going to use, what hotel I'm going to use. I need to sort out my travel plans. But I can also use it if there's some sort of problem and I need to fix it. For example, my flight was canceled, so I need to sort out my travel plans. I need to fix this problem with my plans. So to sort something out, you can organize it or you can fix it if there's a problem. Now that you're more comfortable with these phrasal verbs, let's do the exact same quiz from the beginning again, and you can compare your score from the first time to the second time. So let's do that same quiz now. Question 1. This new app I downloaded, so much memory. This new app I downloaded takes up. Question 2. When a company expands into other locations, it branches out. Question 3. The phrasal verb used when you write something down is jot down. Question 4. Can you? The performance reports next week. Can you carry out? Question 5, I'm having a hard time. The assignment. I'm having a hard time keeping up with. Question 6, if you enter your information in a form, you fill in or fill out. So C. Question 7, the CEO might this week. The CEO might drop in. Question 8, if you delay an event, you push it back. Question 9, if you cancel an event, you call it off. And question 10, I'm not sure who's presenting, We're still the details. We're still sorting out the details. Question 1, you're not going to paying $500 for that. You're not going to talk me into. Question 2, Mariah, the sales proposal yesterday. Mariah drew up. Question 3, good news, because everyone, we met the deadline. Because everyone stepped it up. Question 4, if you keep skipping breaks, you're going to burn out. Question 5, that's a great point. You should, at the meeting. You should bring it up. Question 6, who do you the most in your family? Who do you look up to? Question 7, how long do we need to at the party? How long do we need to stick around? Question 8, your tires look really, you should get new ones. Your tires look really worn out. Question 9, the seller tried to, so we didn't buy it. The seller tried to rip us off. Question 10, I noticed that this report, our production costs. This report honed in on. How did you do with the quiz? Was it easy or difficult? Share your score in the comments, and don't worry if it was hard, because now I'll explain every phrasal verb in detail. Number 1, to rip off. We use this when someone is selling something or buying something and the buyer feels that the price is too high compared to the value of whatever they're buying. For example, I can't believe I paid $200 for that. She ripped me off. Now notice the sentence structure. You rip someone off. She ripped me off. Another example, she told everyone that I ripped her off, but it was a fair price. So just because someone claims you ripped them off, it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Number 2, to wear out. We use this when something is damaged or weakened because of age, it's old, or because of use. You've used it a lot. For example, I wore out my tennis shoes last summer. If someone said that to me, I would assume they played a lot of tennis last summer. They played so much tennis that they wore out their shoes. They became damaged from use, from continually playing tennis. We also use this in an adjective form, to be worn out. So it would be very common to say, I need to buy new tennis shoes because mine are worn out. So of course are, because shoes is plural and we need the plural form of the verb to be. Mine, my tennis shoes are worn out. So both forms are very common. Number 3, to draw up. We use this when you need to prepare paperwork, and generally that paperwork is for a contract, an agreement, a proposal, generally something that 2 people need to sign or agree on to make it official. For example, I asked my lawyer to draw up the papers. Whenever you're dealing with a lawyer, the papers are going to be official. So this is a perfect time to use to draw up. Or you could say, we're waiting for our bank to draw up the mortgage agreement. So that's another very official document that you need to sign, and you can use the phrasal verb to draw up. Number 4, to burn out. This is a phrasal verb that has gotten a lot of attention recently, especially with the pandemic, because to burn out, this is when you feel exhausted mentally or physically from prolonged stress. Stress of work, stress of a situation like a pandemic, stress of a family situation like a divorce or an illness, something like that, but a prolonged period. You can be stressed out for a day, but when you burn out, it means you've had that stress for a long period of time, several weeks, several months, or even several years. For example, I burned out at my last job. So perhaps I was working so much that I went through this period of prolonged stress. I burned out. Another example, I burned out after caring for my aging parents. So caregivers often experience burnout, so you can use this in a work situation or you can use it in a personal situation as well. Number 5, to look up to someone. So notice we have 2 prepositions, look up to and then someone. We use this when you admire someone or you respect someone. So I could say, I looked up to him like a father. So of course I admire and respect my father, and I'm comparing the situation to someone else. I looked up to him, I admired him like a father. Another example, I really look up to my boss. So you admire your boss, or you respect your boss, you hold your boss in high regard. So you can use this in a work situation, you can look up to people, and you can use this in a social situation, a family situation. You can have many different people in your life that you look up to for different reasons. Number 6, to step up. Now that's the phrasal verb, but we most commonly use it in the expression to step it up. Notice that it's very important to step it up, to step it up. This simply means to work harder or to try harder. Now, you can say we need to step it up if we're going to meet the deadline. So you have this deadline, you need to work harder. So it's the same as saying we need to work harder if we're going to meet the deadline. Step it up. Now, what is this it in the expression? Well, the it would represent work or effort. We need to step up our work. We need to step up our effort. Step it up. I encourage you to use it that way, step it up, because you'll sound like a native speaker. We have a really common expression with this, step it up, and then you add the 2 words, a notch. Step it up a notch. If you look at a dial, a notch is 1 move on the dial. So it represents a little bit, a small amount. Step it up a notch. It's just like saying step it up a little bit. So that's just a common expression. You need to step it up a notch if you want to meet the deadline. So you can use it with a notch, it's very common, or you can use it without. Number 7, to hone in on. This is another 2 preposition phrasal verb. We have hone in on. Hone in on something, and this means to really focus on something, to put all your attention on something specific. For example, if we want to get more customers, we should really hone in on small business owners. So maybe right now you're not being very specific and you're looking at all customers, but you want to hone in on one specific segment of the population, small business owners. So you're going to focus on them. You're going to hone in on them. Another example, for the presentation, we should really hone in on South America. So maybe you're a global company and you have branches all over the world, but for this specific presentation, you're going to hone in on one specific part of the world, South America. Now, many native speakers, not students, many native speakers mistakenly say home in on. We need to home in on. And that's because in pronunciation, they're very similar. Hone in, home in. And hone, what's that? It's not really used very much, but everybody knows the word home. But this isn't correct. The expression is not home in on. The expression is hone in on. So make sure you get that both in pronunciation, hone, and in spelling as well. And if you hear a native speaker say home in on, they're incorrect. Number 8, this is a must-know phrasal verb, to bring up. And this is when you begin a discussion on a specific topic. For example, if you're in a staff meeting, it would be very common for the boss or whoever's leading the meeting to say, before we end the meeting, does anyone have anything to bring up? Does anyone have a specific topic they want to discuss? Does anyone have anything to bring up? Or after the meeting, you might tell another colleague, I didn't have a chance to bring up the marketing proposal. So you didn't have a chance to discuss this specific topic, the marketing proposal. Maybe you ran out of time. Number 9, to talk into. And the sentence structure is to talk someone into something. And this means to convince someone to do something. For example, she talked me into helping her move. She convinced me to help her move. So when someone uses this, oh, she talked me into helping her move, it gives you the impression that the person didn't really want to do the activity, but somebody convinced them. But please, I really need your help. I'll buy pizza. Or maybe you could say, my team talked me into bringing up the bonus at the staff meeting. So notice I use bring up, discuss a specific topic, the bonus. My team talked me into bringing up the bonus. Now, because maybe discussing the bonus is a little bit of a sensitive issue and nobody wants to do it, but your team convinced you, lucky you, so they talked you into it. And number 10, to stick around. This is a must-use phrasal verb. You can use it in a social setting or a professional setting. To stick around means to stay in a location for a period of time. So let's say you're at this beautiful park with a friend, and after an hour or so, your friend has to leave, and they say, do you want to share an Uber? And you say, no, I'm gonna stick around a little bit longer. So you're going to stay in a specific location, the park, for a period of time. It's unknown how long you'll stay. That doesn't really matter. It's just the fact you're going to stay. I'm gonna stick around a little bit longer. It's such a beautiful day. I'm gonna stick around. Now you can also use this in the negative. I can't stick around very long because I have a meeting. Although it's a beautiful day, I can't stick around very long. I have a meeting to get back to. Now that you're more comfortable with these phrasal verbs, let's do that same quiz again. So here are the questions. You need to choose which phrasal verb best completes the sentence. Here are the questions. Hit pause now, complete the quiz, and whenever you're ready, hit play, and I'll share the answers. So go ahead and hit pause now. Welcome back. So how did you do on this quiz? Let's find out. Here are the answers. So hit pause, review the answers, and whenever you're ready, hit play and come back to the video. Now keep expanding your vocabulary with this lesson, and you can get your free speaking guide on how to speak English fluently and confidently in 6 easy steps. You can get it from my website right here. And now get started with your next lesson.